Hello, everyone. Back with part 4 of the college application process. This is Opportunity Uplift. This should be a quicker video. We're just going to go over the anatomy of the common application, which is going to be the main interface for you to actually apply to colleges, unless you are applying to colleges in California. So the UC system is a little different, but the main one will be the common application. So let's get into it. Um, So if you watch the last video and you go in order, by now hopefully you should have a finalized college list. So then with those colleges, you'll put it in the Common App. With the Common App though, one caveat is it's not just like your colleges. There's a lot of information you're putting in there. So I'm going to kind of walk you through what are the major categories of information and what you need ahead of time to be able to fill out the Common Application when you're applying to colleges within the United States. And then I'm going to show y'all a quick little template of an application checklist if you want to screenshot it or use it for yourself as you really dive into this whole process now that you're in like October, maybe November, and starting to actually set some deadlines for yourself to apply to colleges. So there are 6 sections of the Common Application. It is a profile, it's your family information, your educational background, testing, activities, so what you did in school, outside of school, and then the writing section. For profile, what you'll need is your legal name, your date of birth. They're also going to ask some demographic information, so likely your gender or sex, your race or ethnicity. It may also be questions around being a first-generation college student, and also the different languages you may speak in your household, whether that be English or a different language that you have a native tongue in, or different levels of proficiency in. Then important things just like contact information. So again, like what is your email, what is your number, what is your address, for them to have in their file, especially if a college wants to contact you. It's going to ask about citizenship. If you are a student who is undocumented or unDACA, you can still use the Common App to apply to colleges. It may just be a different process to get financial aid, so you have to check your school to check your specific school to look into that process for giving aid to students. But you can use the Common App safely to apply to colleges. They have their own privacy and data protection, so you should be good to use it, especially if you are someone who is undocumented. And then they'll ask you questions on whether or not you are eligible for a fee waiver to not have to pay to submit your application. So it'll probably ask you if you are on some sort of social services or if you get like reduced lunch as well or free lunch. That usually is the most applicable way for you to get a fee waiver to submit your applications. Family information, I would recommend for this section is actually just sitting down with your parents and if you have siblings, because you may not know all this information or at least writing down with them. So for your parents or guardians, you'll need to list out like what's your affiliation. Is it a mother? Is it a father? Is it just a guardian? Is it a stepfather? Sort of like, again, what is your affiliation with your parent and guardian? Their information. So same thing as before, your address, number, email, etc. They will also ask about the background of the parent or guardian, especially their education. So this is more so likely to indicate if they if they graduated the high school with the high school diploma, if they went and got their bachelor's, if they went to get their master's and ahead. This also helped indicate if you yourself are going to be a first gen student when you are applying. So it'll ask for both parents or guardians if you have both parent guardian or just one of them. And it'll also ask what is their work background, like what do they do, what do they do for their job, what is the industry that they're doing. It will also ask for your siblings' information. So this will more so be related to one if your siblings are also in K through 12 right now, or if you have siblings who are also in college as well. It'll ask about that too. So kind of similar to the parents or guardians, which is why in this section I just recommend sitting down with your parent and guardian and siblings just to get everything down ahead of time, so you're not going back and forth trying to figure out the different information that you might need. Education. This one is a little lengthy, so it will take some time to do. I wouldn't try to do it in one setting, space it out. You have a lot of days and weeks to fill this out. But what you need, one, is to list out the different schools you attended for high school. So, for example, if you were transferred, you want to list out, which years you were at these different high schools. You can also input if you have any community-based organizations that are supporting you in your applications to college. So, for example, there's a bunch of nonprofits that are both in major cities, rural areas, or nationally and virtually that may support students, you would list it here so they kind of know that you are, a student who maybe is first gen or maybe is underrepresented that's getting support with the application. It's not to hurt you, it's just to list out who is supporting you so they know. You'll also have a space to talk through any interruptions in your education. So, for example, did you take a gap year? Was there a medical emergency? Maybe you just decided to stop out for a bit. Again, this is some space to explain like what was happening, especially if you're not getting your diploma on time, or again, if you're a non-traditional student, some space to like walk through what happened. It'll also ask you about college credit. So, for example, were you in any dual enrollment? So, were you taking any classes at community colleges to get college credit that may transfer to your institution, or were you just taking college classes in general by yourself to get some credit to help out to get you ahead of the curve when you get your bachelor's or associates? It'll ask typical things around grades. So, like, what is your ranking? What is your class size? What is your unweighted and weighted GPA? Please know Common App and colleges know that not all schools follow the same system. So if you don't have a class ranking, that's completely fine. You can just input what information you might have or guesstimate for this for the Common Application section of education. It'll ask you what you're taking for this year. So, for example, are you taking any honors classes? Are you taking any AP classes, or maybe just general education classes, just so they know, because they will have to get a transcript for your senior year when you do apply and get into a college. Any honors, so scholarships, awards that you might have gotten both in and out of school, just to boost up your application. And then a section just on like what are your plans for a career and the education credential you want to get. Is it a bachelor's or associate's, and what specific major? And it is okay if you don't have a perfect answer to this. They're just trying to gauge it to put in the application. Okay. Then we have the dreaded testing. So this is where you're going to put in your SAT or ACT test scores. As a reminder, many colleges are making their application process test optional. So make an informed decision if you want to send in your scores. My recommendation is if your scores are above their average, to send it in. If it's around the average or below, you can decide not to send it if you don't want to, and sort of lean on your GPA and other holistic parts of your application to help make you a better candidate. So you make the decision to do test optional. Talk to your counselor, or just review the different averages and ranges that your specific colleges have. They'll also ask about other test scores that could be AP, IB, TO, EFL, PT Academics, IETLS. So if it's applicable for you, please do put it in. Okay, now onto the probably more, I would say, important part of this, because you have to take some time to write these out and have to do it in a really condensed and meaningful way, is the activity section. So for the activity section, these are going to be the different opportunities that you took in school and out of school. So that would be things like athletics. It would be things like clubs. It would be things like maybe different places you volunteered or business you run. So all the different activities you did when you were in your 4 years of high school, or however long that might have been for you. You'll list it in the type of activity. They'll have a drop-down menu. The hours spent per week, please don't augment this. Please try to be, I would say, conservative on the hours, because just remember, there's only so many hours a week and you're in school for almost 8 hours. So don't try to go OD and be like, hey, I did like 4 to 10 hours a week of this, because that's kind of like crazy for one activity, especially if you have like 8 different activities you did every week. They're gonna have a weird look on that, like, oh, how did they invest like 40 hours a week to do activities? So please be conservative and like really think about how many hours you actually spend. Even if it's just one, it's just one. Just don't try to overestimate, because again, add it up, make sure it actually makes sense, and that you could actually physically do all these hours each week. It'll also ask if you want to intend to do these opportunities as well in college, again, to kind of show what you might be adding to the college campus when people are reviewing your application. I do have some tips to approaching how you write out these activities, because I know it can be a little bit hard since you only have 150 characters to explain what you did. That's very much like a sentence, 2 sentences, so it's not a lot of space to do it. So one thing is really focusing on quality over quantity. You probably heard this a lot, but reflect on all your different activities you've done in your time in high school, and which ones make you unique, which ones are going to really show your passions, your interests, and maybe even what you might be doing on your college campus or as a career, because this helps paint a really good picture of you as a candidate and also where you might stand when you get to this college campus. So you can help the admission office really see like, oh, this is why we want this candidate to be there, because they're going to do X, Y, and Z based on what I've seen in their activities. For example, maybe you want to be a journalist, so you want to really show the activities that have focused on different pathways to journalism, so they can see, oh, this is aligning, this makes sense. I want them in my school to do, to be a part of the newspaper organization or whatever it is they have on campus. Because you also actually have to rank all of your activities. You can do 10 total. You're going to rank it from 1 to 10. So, like, what is your most important and what is your least important as well. So, you have to think carefully again on which ones really highlight you and are important to you and make you stand out. You can avoid using I statements, so you don't write full sentences. Treat it kind of like a resume. So use action verbs to show what you've done, especially like you managed, you created, you innovated, and also try to add metrics. So maybe you're managing a team of 10, or maybe you raised this much money for a nonprofit. But again, treat it as if you're doing a resume, even though I know on the common application, you can also upload your resume. But again, like you're not going to be able to add every single activity on your resume. So this section allows space for that. What I also would recommend is prioritizing or ranking higher activities you've done for a longer term, because it shows commitment and interest. So for example, if you only did something for like 2 months or like a short semester, maybe rank that a bit lower and focus on the ones you've done for a year plus, especially ones you may have done for 2 years plus, because it shows your genuine interest in those activities. You can use your brag sheet. So if you go back to, I think, part 2 of these series is like that brag sheet that you made. Use that brag sheet to help you fill out this activities section of the common application, especially the leadership roles you've done. And if possible, this may not always work, but do you have any recommenders, like teachers or mentors, who can also help speak into these activities to provide more context and again, really create a holistic application for you and like provide more depth on like what you did in a specific club or organization? Now, I'm going to walk you through what I consider two strong examples of how to write an activity in the common application. So this is the first example. So one, the position from this student was they were a college access ambassador. The organization was New York University, their College Access Leadership Institute. You'll have around 100 characters, I think, to write out the organization. And again, you'll see in this description, right, they use action verbs, and they wrote it in the past tense because they're no longer doing it. So they wrote, assisted 5 underrepresented students at my school on how to maneuver the college and financial application process through private one-on-one workshops. So very clear, very concise, and they have the metrics of 5 students. And they really specified what impact they made, which was really walking them through the college application process through one-on-one workshops. So clear, concise, action verbs, and even metrics. A second example, so this might be good for folks who are in different clubs or extracurriculars at their school. So they have 2 positions. So one was their C team, which was in 10th grade, and then in 12th grade, they were the captain varsity, and it was an envirothon. So what they wrote is they mentored 5 peers in sustainable harvesting methods, secured first state championship title, and increased average forestry exam scores by 10%. So really strong here because there are 3 key action verbs: is mentored, secured, and increased. They have 2 metrics that they mentored 5 people, and they also increased the exam scores by 10%, showing again what is the result that they achieved in this role that they were in. And also, as you see with both of these examples, it is only verbs, no I statements. So very, again, treat it like a resume and really save space by not saying I and just go directly to those action verbs and leadership verbs, leadership sort of descriptors that you could have in your examples. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the comment. I'm happy to review your activities if you want to give me an example. So lastly, we have writing. This is basically going to be your personal statement. In the next part of this, in the next video, I'll probably post in a week or two. We'll be going over how to write your personal statement, tips and tricks. It'll also be a space for you to input any disciplinary history you have at school and provide an explanation. So, did you get suspended? Were you involved in the juvenile, in different, I don't think it's juvenile, but again, like to walk through, did you get in any trouble? And is there anything on your record you want to put in here? You do have to put it in there because it was on your record, and pretty sure the school will get it automatically. But it provides you a space to explain as well to give context. And then they'll have a short section too, just for additional information. This is more sort of walk through any extenuating circumstances. So, for example, maybe you had really poor grades because you were going through loss in the family, or maybe you want to walk through why you had a gap in your education. So, to add some more context to your application, especially for circumstances that are out of your control or that may impact how one might view your overall application, do not use this place to like add in additional activities because it's just not going to look right. Again, this is an optional space to put in additional activities. You don't need to do this unless you have those actual circumstances that you want to um, share to the admissions committee. So I'm just going to share two examples of a checklist in this next slide. What you'll see here is an application checklist. In this checklist, there's five main sort of descriptors. So one, like what is your college name? Important, where you're applying to. Two, what is the deadline? This is going to be dependent on the decision plan. So if you applied regular decision, if you applied early decision, or if you applied early action, those will all have different deadlines and different implications. But again, you want to know what deadline is so you can plan accordingly should you need to do any supplemental essays for them. Because if you apply to a college, usually top 100 colleges will always have some sort of supplemental essay, maybe one, maybe two. So you want to plan out how many they are so you can actually spread out on your calendar. Again, like when are you dedicating time to write all these different essays and having drafts and getting feedback so it makes sense and you have it finalized before the due date of each of these colleges. And then the most important one is like, did you submit the application? Because if you don't, you never actually are going to hear back from school because they don't have your application. The second checklist I have is more like a general application checklist. So this is more like material. So for example, you will always ask at the very least two teachers for letter of recommendation. So you just want to check like one who is the teacher, what is the subject? That's why the parentheses are empty. And then like did they actually complete it? Did they write it? Did you get a chance to like confirm with them? And then two, did they upload it into the Common Application? You have to request them through Common App, or I think it's Naviance, whatever your school uses, to make sure they upload that PDF of the recommendation into the Common App, and then it'll get referred to your specific college. So two teachers. Some schools have the option to have three letters of recommendation. So the third one could be from like a mentor, a supervisor, somebody else who can speak into you as a candidate beyond like the educational aspect. So again, more holistic. So again, did they complete it? Did they upload it? And then most importantly, because you want to make sure you are applying for financial aid and getting need-based or merit scholarships and grants, did you complete the FAFSA and did you complete the CSS? And I'll talk through those applications in a future video as well. So next steps for folks based on this video is one, hopefully by now you will have already made your Common App. I'm pretty sure your school will have walked you through that. If not, make your Common App, start filling out each of these sections. And again, like if you have to have your parent or guardian or sibling there, be sure to connect with them to get the information. Draft your activities. This is a very important part of your application because it really paints a picture on who you are and what you have done in your interest. And make sure to add in your recommenders too so they can upload the letter of recommendation before the due date, whenever your deadline is. If there's any questions that came up based on this video, please feel free to put it in the comment section and I'll be sure to try to respond in a timely manner, or you can DM me on Instagram or TikTok. Yeah, thank you for tuning in, and I'll do my best to release the next video within a week. I know this one took a little bit longer to do because I was on vacation, but thank you again, and yeah, let me know if you have any questions.